Welcome back to Small Caps. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and I've asked Keren Paterson, she is the Managing Director of Trigg Mining, ASX code is TMG, to come and talk to us because the quarterly's out. Now, for those of you that don't know, without Trigg Mining, well, that's probably a bold statement, but Trigg Mining's got a massive project, sulphate of potash, over in Western Australia. What does sulphate of potash do? Well, it gives fertiliser to farmers to allow you to have food on your plate, and we all know that there are challenges with global supply chains. This is a project in Australia for Australians. And in talking to Keren just before, the price, and I'll let her go into the numbers, but the price of the sulphate of potash 12 months ago, it's gone up about 120%. It's now trading over $1,000 a tonne, which I'm going to talk to Keren about this. Does that mean that they throw out the scoping study and start again? I don't know. But from a $540 an ounce back about a year ago to per tonne, not per ounce. I'm thinking gold, but it's like gold for food. Anyway, per tonne, it's now over 1,000 per tonne. So the numbers are looking really good, and we all need to eat because without food, can't buy your jewelry. Anyway, Keren, good to see you. Thanks for coming back and having a chat to me on Small Caps. Big project, getting bigger, feeding the world, if you like, but feeding Australia first. But you're looking really in a good position. You've got a strong cash balance, 6 million in the bank. So that's a really good position to be in. And this project continues to grow. So let's talk the quarterly because everyone knows who you are. What's the quarterly? Give us the highlights.
Well, in the quarterly, we talk about the gravity survey interpretation that we completed in the quarter. And that has reinforced our interpretation there at Lake Throssell and in fact broadened that interpretation. So we're now considering that valley to be even up to 6 kilometres wide, which is quite unique in that just how, I suppose we're talking about kilometres, it's not really compact, but compared to other channels and the distance that infrastructure needs to expand or extend over that channel, this is quite different in that at the moment, our project sits over about 34 kilometres long and up to 6 kilometres wide. We've also had tenements granted, so all of the exploration tenements at Lake Throssell are now granted, and that's expanded the strike length that we have access to now 70 kilometres. So that's doubled over and above where the resource sits. So we've got lots of exploration upside as well as further work to do on the pre-feasibility study, which we've started as well.
When you say, because those numbers are mind-boggling in my opinion, 6 kilometres wide, and how long was it, 34?
34 k's long, yeah.
So is it shallow? Is it easy to mine? What's the process like that you have to go through? Because the numbers seem very robust, but what's the process like of getting it to market?
Well, it is really different to mining that we're used to in Australia. This is quite new to us, not new globally, but the minerals are dissolved in the hypersaline brines of the goldfields where our projects are in Western Australia. So it's dissolved in solution. We're looking for the ions, the potassium and sulphate ions within that brine. And the process of producing it is pumping it from the groundwater where it sits. And this is really hypersaline. We're not talking about fresh water that's supporting plant life. This is super, super saline that things don't live from. But bringing that to the surface, using solar evaporation to grow salts, it's quite very much an agricultural style project more than mining.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Grow the salts, exposed to the climate, exposed to the environment, and in doing that, but harvesting that massive solar bank that we have in the sky to then produce the feed salts for the process plant. And the process plant is a purification process to finish the product and make sure that there's no table salt, sodium chloride or halite left in that final product. So the potassium sulphate is a really pure fertiliser. It provides 2 of the 4 macronutrients of plant growth, and it's essential for agricultural output. So as you
I know I've asked you this before, but just to confirm, right now in Australia, do we import 100% of sulphate of potash?
We do. We import all of our potassium, be it sulphate or muriate of potash. And muriate of potash is 50% chloride, which is quite detrimental to soils and many crops. So we really do need sulphate of potash. and we need more of it, and we need an Australian source or multiple Australian sources to shore up agricultural output.
Well, on the lips of everybody at the moment, I mean, it's funny, a lot of us in Australia, we live in cities and we don't really connect the dots as to where our food supply comes from. So you've answered that question really well, but on the lips of everybody at the moment is the sustainability picture and the ESG. And you mentioned the big thing in the sky, the sun, which is what you'll use for energy to do the evaporation. Talk to us about the sustainability of this project, because a lot of people are concerned about that sort of thing. So is Trigg Mining very much a sort of green mining, if you like? Because as you said, it's more agricultural than mining.
Well, the very purpose of Trigg and the foundation of Trigg is to build mines communities can be proud of. And to me, a really important part of that is to be very sustainable in our approach to doing it. And by harvesting the brine, we're not interrupting the current geological deposition environment. So these projects are still active. They're still concentrating minerals in them. And we're looking at what we can harvest from that, and then harvesting solar energy to produce something that's quite natural and has potential to even be certified for organic farming use. So it is a really natural product. It's a very efficient fertiliser, and as I said, it provides only 2 of the 4 macronutrients for plant growth. There's nothing detrimental in it at all. Plants need it. It's very efficient and very positive to increase the sustainability of our soils and our agricultural output as well.
Now, your scoping study shows that this has got a 21-year mine life. I'm sure that will probably increase given what you've just told me.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about, I guess, the news flow going forward. I'm talking to you right now as we come into the beginning of May. What is 2022 going to deliver for shareholders in terms of your news flow going forward?
We've got a lot of work to do to build up the data set for the pre-feasibility study. So there's field work to come in regards to that. We've got a planned air core program and a water bore program. And the water bores will be the first time we get to pump test the basal aquifer. And that's really important because that will then provide us with the data that we need to convert the mineral resource estimate to an ore reserve.
When is the water bore program starting and how long will that take? Because I guess, is that the base for getting it out and putting the process together? Is it the water bore program, I'm assuming?
Yeah, there's a few steps we need to go ahead of that. And we've had a few delays with COVID accessing the tenement and doing the heritage survey that we need to do. But that we anticipate that'll happen now in the current quarter. And then we can get out on the ground and start the drilling program next quarter. So the back half of this year will be a lot of the data collection and the announcements of all of that. But in the meantime, we're also starting other study streams, which are really important to make sure that we are firstly learning the lessons from the first movers. We've had 2 first movers go into construction and have some hiccups around the commissioning phase, and that has delayed the projects coming on stream and ramping up. And we've been watching very closely to what's going on there and making sure that we're having a good look at what we can do to reduce the risk of that occurring when we get to that point. So we've got some studies underway that are looking at different ways that we can increase the reliability of that evaporation process. And we haven't got an answer for that question yet, but we're looking at ways that we can do this and really reduce the risk of the project and make sure that we build the right project at the right price at the right time.
Keren, do you think the market's just a little bit nervous about the process? Because you said earlier that, you know, it's not been done in Australia, but it has been, you know, it's not unusual globally for these projects to come online. Why hasn't Australia had projects before now? What's been the challenge here?
Well, I think for us in Australia, we've been so well endowed with so many minerals, excuse me, that we've focused so much on metals and the extraction of metals from rock. And I know when I went to university, that was my degree. That's what I focused on, and I graduated and I worked in gold mines and nickel mines and copper mines. And it was all very exciting doing that with drill and blast. But to look at the endowment in the brine, we really haven't considered that until Australian Geoscience did a report on the endowment of brine, predominantly looking for lithium opportunities in Australia. Yeah. But what they ended up discovering is that there's more potassium opportunities in the brine, and that's what's really started this sector off. And I'm very grateful to Australian Geoscience having done that.
Well done, Australian Geoscience. We love that. And speaking of technology and lithium, obviously lithium comes from brines. A lot of people know about that. Lithium is the kind of the sexy thing at the moment, but they're also using direct extraction methodology. Is that something that Trigg might look at in the future? Because technology could shorten the time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are looking at that. How does this apply to the brine? How does it apply to the chemistry of our brines? It's quite different chemistry. There's different pH, different concentrations of more deleterious elements. So, and probably not so deleterious is the right word there. It would be other electrons that are in the brine that we aren't necessarily looking at abstracting. So things like sodium and chloride. This is all electrolytes. We use table salt every day in our diets. There's also magnesium in the brine, and how does all of that work with these different technologies? And we look, as you've pointed out before, and I'm not sure if it was in this interview or another conversation we've had, this is a really long life project. We talked about the initial 21-year mine life, and with that, we're only looking at this stage 40% of the resource. So we need to think about it in quite a different way to if we're looking at this as a 5-year gold project.
Yeah.
The technology that we're looking at today is going to change over time. So we need to make sure that we're reasonably adaptable and thinking about how we can do this to really optimise the endowment there with the water, with the minerals that are in the water, and also the natural energy environment that we have out there, particularly with the sun.
You said just a second ago, and I picked up on it, my little ears picked up on this, you talked about different products, because we're talking sulphate of potash and farming and all that sort of stuff, but there are, you mentioned magnesium, and I went, oh, we love magnesium, that's a big market. And I don't know, because I don't have your background and understanding from the chemical point of view, but is it like mining other things whereby you could have a magnesium byproduct or a sodium byproduct? In other words, can this be sulphate of potash and you get credits with the other minerals in there? Can that work?
Yeah, there is a possibility of that. We need to make sure that we build a base, robust project that is going to pay off the debt of the project to start with. But making sure that we do also look at how we really do optimise that endowment. And if there is a market there for the magnesium products, what is it going to cost to build it? How much impact does that have on the process flow sheet? And then can we do that? Do we do that on day one, or do we do that down the track? That'll all be part of the planning of the pre-feasibility study as well.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I just want to ask you this. The scoping study was done. It was probably done around, $550 a tonne, and now the price is $1,000. Are you going to have to redo the scoping study, throw it all out and start again?
No. The only real impact that has changed has been that revenue line. There is a sensitivity analysis in the announcement back in October, on the 5th of October last year, that showed that for every 10% rise in the price, being $55 a tonne, it would have roughly about $140 million impact on the NPV. $140 million on the NPV. Now, just let me ask you this. I think I've got this. Is your market cap at the moment 15 million? Yes.
Right. So the market doesn't realise what it is you've got in the ground and how big this was. And as I said right at the start, and Keren's confirmed it, this is a big project, ladies and gentlemen, which just keeps getting bigger. 6 kilometres wide, 34 kilometres long, and it's a simple, I guess, extraction or mining method, if you like. But the challenge, if you like, comes in the evaporation method, and the length of time. So looking at technology could shorten that length of time going forward.
Yep.
Keren, we're running out of time. Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, to put this all into perspective, we announced the discovery of this deposit 12 months ago.
That's pretty impressive. And you've got a long way to go. Just before we get to my little, give me 3 reasons why we should sit up and take notice right now, you've got 6 million in the bank. That's going to get, are you going to be doing more exploration, or you do the water bore program? Just give us what's the plan? What's the 6 months showing you?
Next 6 months is about air core drilling to refine the locations of the water bores.
Yep.
Putting the water bores in and pump testing, that's critically important to the process. Doing the process flow sheet analysis work and the options that we have with that, and continue the baseline environmental surveys so that we can refer this to the EPA once we've worked out what the project is going to look like.
We've run out of time, Keren. So can you just let us know 3 reasons why my beautiful community out there should sit up and take notice of Trigg Mining ASX code TMG right now?
Well, the first one is we've had massive disruption to the access and availability to potassium fertilisers, and they are essential for plant growth. We do need them for our agricultural yield so that we can feed the world. That's incredibly important. And we need more and more sources of potassium fertiliser outside of areas like Russia and Belarus that account for up to 40% of global muriatic potash supply. As Western Australia is endowed with a number of these deposits, and Trigg has got a fantastic one at Lake Throssell. We have only just started exploring it and defining that resource. There's so much more upside to talk about yet at Lake Throssell. And down at Lake Yeo, which we haven't even talked about today, we've got an additional 80 kilometres of paleo channel that we identified in the last quarter. That's all in the same valley. So we've got a lot to discover and talk about as we develop this concept of a production hub, sulphate production hub, 180 kilometres east of Laverton. It's going to be sitting on a highway. The federal government announced the last amount of money to go through to seal that Trans-Australian highway. That also occurred during the quarter. So we've got endowment of infrastructure. We've got a fantastic project out there. I'm building a fantastic team as well that are really excited about exploring all the options that we have available to really build a project that communities are going to be proud of.
Well, ladies, we can hear the passion in her voice. Keren absolutely loves this. And as she said, we didn't even get onto Lake Yeo, but just think of it this way. Lake Throssell, we talked about it, massive. Lake Yeo is like the twin sister of Lake Throssell. So 2 massive projects there. They're only just getting started. I think they've just flown a little bit under the radar. And what we love to bring you with our small caps interviews is opportunities, but you have to do your own research. This is not financial advice. But Keren, I think from 12 months ago, you've made some great strides. Thanks so much for giving us an update on the quarterly. And come back again and give us an update in another couple of months, because it seems to me like things are starting to move a lot quicker over there at Trigg.
They are. Thank you for having us, Keren.